We are psyched to bring in incoming Flyers president, also a proud alum of the Harvard of the Midwest, Western Michigan, Keith Jones. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Sean, and really happy to be able to join you guys today. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Philadelphia, and yeah, just ready to continue to get things started here as we try to get back on track with the Philadelphia Flyers.
So today seems like I saw, you mentioned when you jumped on, you just talked to WIP for a really long time, the big sports talk station there. Saw you jumped on with Sirius earlier. You're making the media rounds. It's something that you've certainly got a lot of experience doing on both ends. Is this like the big day for that? Do you just have like interviews like blocked out for the next 6 hours here? Is that what today is?
Today is a lot of that. I'm actually flying back down to Florida in a few. We still have our home there. We're,
Mm-hmm.
we're in the process of obviously moving back, but we had just moved down about a year and a half ago. Our daughter's an equestrian, and my
Oh
wife
wow.
wanted to be closer to her, and I can kind of, with the previous jobs that I had, jump all over the place. So we had just settled in there. So you can be sure that that was an emotional move going down there, and now it's going to be a really happy emotional move heading back as we get readjusted and head back
Mm-hmm.
to Philadelphia. So there's just a lot of other things to take care of, including finishing the playoffs with TNT. So I'm heading to Carolina tomorrow to meet up with Edzo and Kenny and the rest of the
Oh,
crew
that's
and get ready
great.
for what should be a great Eastern Conference final.
I was gonna ask about that. I wasn't sure if you were still on the schedule for the rest of this. So you have more games coming up. Good God, take a break. Come on, you have two jobs
Uh,
now.
I know, but those guys have been so great to me,
Yeah,
and it's always good to finish what you start. So I'm happy that
love it.
both the Flyers and TNT are want me to do it. So I'm going to go do it, have fun with the guys that have been so instrumental in allowing me to gain the knowledge that I have to hopefully move on and do a nice job here in Philadelphia.
We were talking in the intro, there's going to be people out there, Flyers fans out there who have only known you their whole lives and, in their mid 20s now, who haven't known you as anything but the TV personality. I'm curious, like when you were making this decision to make this jump, like, did you just have the itch to kind of have a stake in the game again? Or was it about the Flyers specifically? Like, what made you want to do this now?
Yeah, it was only the Flyers. This
Mm-hmm.
was the only team that I would ever considered it. And when one of their guys on the team that was searching out, one of the search team members reached out and just asked if I had interest, I thought about it for literally about 10 seconds, and my answer was yes. But this is the only place that I would ever attempted to go through the interview process and eventually become the president of the team. Nowhere else. This was it. I love doing my job in television and radio, and I've been so fortunate to have opportunities after my career ended and took advantage of those opportunities. So I'm in a place in my life where I can take a chance, and I'm going to do that. It's an
Mm-hmm.
educated opportunity. I think the team has potential to turn around. I was a little bit more concerned 2 years ago than I am after last season with John Tortorella. So I think timing can be everything in life. And I think in this case, it certainly came into play.
It is an interesting, look window you get, or had gotten at the league from your previous spot, to now going in and, having a few days to kind of get the lay of the land. And like you said, observing, life under Torts here this last year. But how do you feel differently about what the challenges are there and how equipped you guys are to handle them just a couple of days onto the job here?
Yeah, I feel good about it. Like the more I dig into it and the more discussions I have with Danny Briere, the more impressed I am with him. I'm really confident that he's got what it takes to be the general manager of the Flyers. This is a unique city. We're in a unique position. We have a chance to build this thing back. And I think Danny is perfect in that regard. I always appreciated the fact that he chose to come here as an unrestricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's at a time where he could have gone pretty much anywhere. He made my job easier doing television by being here.
Mm-hmm.
His style of play was not necessarily what the Flyers were known for. He's a really talented but smaller player that had the heart of a champion underneath all of that, his boyish looks. There's no question that he was ultra competitive. The fact that he stayed here, studied to become a general manager, obviously made a ton of money. He didn't need to do this, but he put the work in because he has a passion for it. And I think that's going to serve us well moving forward. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do with this team as we all kind of embark on this unusual situation with three guys that are going to be really involved in getting this team back on the right track.
I thought Daniel Hilford, he said something interesting a few days ago. He's the Comcast Spectacor chairman about Briere. He said, look, he'd been in the interim role for a little bit, so they knew what they were getting. But he also said that there was like no need for a search, right? Like that's how all in he is on Danny Briere as the GM. We know he was a great player. We know, like, I think he made a great point by saying that he didn't need to come to Philly. He chose to come to Philly. I think that's important. But also, like, what have you seen from him over the last couple months that makes him the guy from a GM standpoint, as it certainly seems like he is?
Number one, he just has a very keen sense of what this organization needs moving forward. He knows where some changes need to be made because he's come up through the system. He's really watched everything. He's interacted with those in our organization that are making key decisions. We have, a really big job in front of us, and our amateur scouting is going to be gigantic in this process, probably bigger than any other department that we have. He's very familiar with all of those guys, what they do, what they represent, what their strengths are, and maybe in some cases what their weaknesses are. I trust that he's been very thorough in his evaluation because of his inside look at what's going on here. That gives me great confidence that he's going to do an outstanding job. He has a good relationship with John Tortorella. They two gentlemen respect one another. I think that's really important. They're open for dialogue between the two of them and myself. And the number one goal is to create an environment of accountability that really serves what we want to do here for the city of Philadelphia, our fans, and obviously the organization moving forward. He gets it. He knows what it is and what it takes and what we're looking for. And I have similar thoughts in that regard. But I also like the fact that he sees the game differently than I did as a player. And I think having multiple different ways to, view players and teams and organizations, I think it's important to have not a lot of different viewpoints, but a few different viewpoints that can make this ultimately be what we're looking for.
So obviously, with your reputation, with your contact list that you're going to bring to this, like, I wonder how much do you see that as something you can bring to Danny in this job? He's stepping into this, and obviously he's been in the front office here, but you're going to have a list of connections in the franchise around the league. And how much of that do you think kind of you can help maybe bridge some of those divides for him and maybe make the process smoother, I think?
Yeah, I think there's a big part of that to this. That's a big component of what I can, in some ways, help Danny with. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help him in any situation. I'm there for him. I made that clear to him and at the press conference that when Danny needs something, I'm going to do my best to make sure that happens and support him with his decisions. So I have some people I can introduce him to that I'm, very much in tune with, that I've known a long time, some that I grew up with, and some that I played with, and some that I've met through doing my job in television on a national level. I think all of those relationships matter. I think we want to build on those relationships together. And I think we want to do it in an honest way where if we are making trades, we want it to be trades that are good for both teams. And then therefore we'll be able to trade with that club again in the future. Yeah. So we want to build relationships with the men that have worked so hard to build their own teams. I think it's really important.
You guys do have some hires to make, right? You have a front office to build out. How involved do you expect to be in those kind of moves, the AGM move specifically? And I'm just wondering, is there any specific skill set or personality type or whatever that you're looking for in those roles specifically?
Yeah, Danny will be, the number one person in building out his staff. He's going to have to, build a staff that he trusts, that he recognizes are going to have big roles in helping us get to where we need to go. I'll have input, but I'm going to let him, for the most part, choose, what direction he goes with and the type of people that he gets in those positions based upon his experience of over the last, half a dozen years or more of kind of the inner workings of an organization. I think he has a very good feel for that. I trust that he's going to do a great job in hiring the right people. We want to get this right, and we want the right people to help us get there. And it's going to take hiring the right people from the outside or from within. And I think Danny's the right guy to kind of ultimately decide who, in fact, he's going to go with to make sure that we get this thing in the right place.
What are the front offices kind of around the league that you've, noticed over the past decade and a half or so and kind of said, okay, these are the ones I'm kind of going to draw inspiration on? I really liked how they ran from, what interactions you were able to have kind of with them.
Yeah, I'm a big David Poile fan. Grew up under him in Washington. I've always loved the way he built his teams. Was hoping he'd win the cup in Nashville going back a few years ago when he had his, best shot of doing that. He also did a great job in building the Washington Capitals. He has a formula. It has not brought him ultimate success, but it's made him very successful, and the teams that he's been around have been very good teams. So I take a lot from what I learned from him, how he acted, the type of gentleman that he was, what it was like to play for him, how much you appreciated and did not want to let him down because of the great things he did for you. Pierre Lacroix, took a lot from Pierre in my time in Colorado. Ultimately, the way he treated his players, how he built championship teams, the talent that he brought together and managed, a lot of different personalities. Those are two of the guys that really jump off the page. And of course, Bobby Clarke in my time here in Philadelphia, Paul Holmgren as well. Those two gentlemen have done a lot in their careers as well. And I guess those would be some of the guys that I would be, looking to as far as looking back on what they had accomplished and what they had done in my eyes firsthand in front of me.
I thought an interesting part last week when they introduced you guys, Torts and Hillford both kind of unprompted, honestly, sort of seemed like they were trying to address people who might have been looking for a fresh start, right? Involving people who maybe didn't have ties, as strong a ties to the organization as maybe you and Briere do. Torts said directly, like, why do people think that they're diseased? Was what was the quote, which is of course like, right. That's just like perfect Torts right there. And I don't want throwing that aside. There might be a middle ground here, right? Where people who don't see like an inherent problem with bringing on Flyers alone like that, but they're also maybe a little skeptical of the concept, of business as usual because of, the hard times that the franchise has fallen on in the last little bit. So what do you say to those people who are like, they're not against the concept, but they are, their eyebrows raise a little bit when they do bring in, the people who are as close to it as you and Danny have been?
Yeah, I would say this is different in multiple ways, but number one, and the way the three of us are going to work as a triumphant. We are going to work together. John Tortorella is going to have a lot to say about player personnel. His opinion is going to be heard. I appreciate what he brings and his knowledge of the game and the way he holds his players accountable. I'm a fan, so I always have been. And I know him personally. I know him away from the game. I know he's a good man. And that's important. So there is differences. Danny did a lot of his, playing in different cities. He wasn't just a Philadelphia Flyer, but like we mentioned earlier, it's an important part of who he is. And one of the big things that I appreciate him most is he knows the area. This is a unique city. This is not an easy place. This is a tough place. And you have to have thick skin and you have to have a willingness to try to do what's right at every turn. You're going to be held accountable. We recognize that. We welcome that. We want to prove to our fans that we're doing this for them. This is not us. This is not my team. This is our team. And that's the message that we're going to get across to them. Some of my best friends in hockey come from different places than here. You know, I mentioned David Poyle, my relationships with Dale Hunter from Washington, Craig Berube in Washington, Rick Tocchet throughout the league, you know, players like Scott Mellenby that are in that same, you know, group of friends that we have. Colorado with Joe Sakic, who was one of the first people I talked about this particular position, being a president. Chris Drury was there with me in Colorado for a short time, know him well. Tom Fitzgerald, Colorado, we played together there as well. There's a lot of Avalanche connections that have really.
I was going to say, I sense a theme developing here with a bunch of those names, right? Those are great guys to have around.
Yes, they are, and they are great friends too. So, you know, we all want to see each other succeed, except when we're playing one another. But I'm glad to be back in the picture of playing them again. I haven't won and lost in a long time, unless I said the wrong thing. That was the only loss I could get. And fortunately, I made it through that so far. So I'm going to try to win some games now and have some fun doing it. But at the same time, live through the agony of defeat, go home and not sleep at night because of it, and try to fix it. So that's the plan on my end.
I gotta think that's part of the appeal, right? Like having some skin in the game there to have these games, you know, fire you up. Maybe not quite in the same you know, visceral way you would as a player, but you know, I'm sure there will be, you know, real stakes here for you.
There's no doubt about it. There is obviously risk to doing this because losing sucks, and I don't like it. Didn't like it when I played, but I want to make sure that we're in a position where we're winning a lot more at some point with patience. Hopefully the near future, but ultimately the players will decide that. But we want to build something where we're contending for a long time, like some of the great franchises around the league, you know, including the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Red Wings for a long time, the Avalanche have done it. You know, you don't have to look far to understand which teams have been the most successful. And we're going to, you know, try to model ourselves after some of those elite teams that have done it the right way. And we want to make sure that we're doing all the research and hard work that we can to get this team in that place.
I wanted to bring it back to Philly specifically, you know, because it's a one of a kind place. We know this from the outside. It did feel like there was a need to almost reconnect the franchise with the fan base or the city because of, I mean, we saw the anger, right? It was next level, even for Philly, I think, in some regards. Is that something you saw? Is that something you felt, that there was that need to kind of reinforce, you know, maybe the city's faith in the team or the franchise, because it seemed like it was on the wane there, honestly, for a bit.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of apathy. It was not a good situation. You know, it's not where you ever want to be in a sport like hockey in a major U.S. city where you can be forgotten about. And that's what was happening here. So there's a responsibility that we all have to make sure that we keep this team interesting, that we share with our fans the plan that we have moving forward. We're not trying to save our jobs this year. We're trying to make this team better. And I think that's something that if we're honest with our fans, that they will buy into, as long as we keep them informed and visually show them that we're backing up our words. So that's kind of the way that I view it. But we have not been an important team in this city for a while. And we've got some good teams in this city. You know, the Sixers just disappointed again, unfortunately. The Eagles are the model. The Eagles do it right. They have a similar cap situation to what we have. They have plenty of resources to work, you know, around their cap and make sure that their team is a desirable place for people to arrive at. They've drafted extremely well, used those resources to make sure they built up a very competent staff, whether through analytics studies or, you know, through their amateur scouting system. You know, they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. Has it ever been a better pick than that? We need to make some of those picks. We need a Braden Point in the third round. We need that. So the Eagles are who we want to be. We will never share the spotlight with them, but we
Mm.
would much rather be in their shadow than forgotten about. And that's what we're working to turn around here.
So it sounds like you, I mean, you guys said this last week, you're saying it now, you're in it for the long haul, right? This seems like it's, nobody wants to say rebuild. That's always a tough word to utter, but this sounds like it's going to be a process, right? And it seems like it's something that the fans
No doubt.
are willing to, are willing and ready to accept.
Yeah, we have no choice. So
Mhm.
we know we have to build this thing back up. I mean, there's no doubt. And we have to have a direction, and we have to stay with the plan. And we've got a plan. We know what we're looking for. We have an opportunity to make things right. It's a great opportunity. I'm excited about it. I know that Danny and Torts are as well. I appreciate what Torts has done in getting this team started back in the right direction. And we're going to do our part to, provide him with the tools necessary to allow him to guide us into that place. That's the plan. And we're gonna reiterate it, and we're gonna back it up and make sure that we do our best to get this right.
I think there's a lot of people out there that are really happy to hear stuff like this coming from someone in your position, for sure. Keith, thanks for the time. What's your schedule for the Eastern Conference Final? How many times are we going to see on TV here potentially?
Yeah, so I'll be there in the Florida Carolina series until it's over, and then I'll be at the final. So looking forward to seeing everybody that I've worked with for so many years. I didn't have a chance to enjoy some great hockey and make sure we bring it to the fans. They deserve it, and the players that are playing have done a great job to get to the Final Four.
That's great. It makes you one of the best. Thanks for the time, Keith.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great day.